I would like to welcome everyone to Empathy Month USA 2024. And we have a special edition of the Religious Diversity Group panel discussion. I am very grateful to have all of you here as speakers. And I just want to introduce Empathy Month in a very short sentence. The purpose of the Empathy Month global online event is to raise awareness about the impact of empathy on our communities, understanding ourselves more and understanding each other so we can create a friendlier, happier, better world around us. So thank you for being part of this because I feel that there's a huge division, and a lot of people feel it's because of religion. Different religions have different values. In my opinion, that is different, that all the religions have very, very similar core values: be kind and love one another. So I hope to prove that through your presentation. So thank you for being here. I appreciate that. Let's enjoy the session together, and I'll turn it over to Reverend Rainbow.
Well, it is such a joy to be here. And I presume I'm on the screen, am I? Am I on the screen? Because I'm not on the screen here.
Yes, you are on the screen.
Well, thank you for that feedback. It's very, very beautiful of you to do that. For many of you who know me, who actually know me, know that whatever happens, I always think it reminds me of a song. And I always start singing a song, no matter what's going on, if it's a song that I knew from before or a song that I'm composing. So today, not today, but this time period, when I heard the word empathy, a little ditty came into my mind. So I beg your forgiveness. I'm just going to share that little ditty with you right now. Empathy, you're growing inside of me. There is some kindness entering into my mindness, and my consciousness is really quite a mess. It's time to start changing and rearranging. My darling empathy. We're going to move right on into some South African terms I want to share with you. You all survived that very, very well. I congratulate you. The first term I want to share with you is sawubona. It's a Zulu term and it means I see you. Sawubona, I see you not only with my eyes, but I see you with my heart. And it's called Sawubona. And as you well know, one of my super duper favorite poets is Hafiz. And what Hafiz says, he says, I am a hole in the flute that the Christ breath moves through. Listen to the music. And then he goes on, I found a poem by Hafiz that I'd never seen before, and it's perfect for empathy. It's called Our Union, Our Union. He says, our union is like this. You feel cold, so I reach for a blanket to cover our shivering feet. A hunger comes into your body, so I run to my garden and start digging potatoes. You asked for a few words of comfort and guidance, and I quickly kneel by your side, offering you a whole book as a gift. You ache with loneliness one night so much you weep, and I say, here is a rope. Tie it around me. Hafiz will be your companion for life. Wow, I was just thrilled to discover that beautiful poem by Hafiz. So now it's time for the second South African word. The first one was Sayubono, and this one is called Masikane. Masikane. It's a South African word which means let us work together and let us build each other. Let us work together and let us build each other. Alfred Adler says, empathy is seeing with the eyes of another, hearing with the ears of another, and loving with the heart of another. Way to go, Alfred Adler. Empathy, the ability to take on another perspective, to understand, to feel its possibly, share and respond to their experience. And Roger Ebert said, I believe empathy is the most essential quality of civilization. The most essential quality of civilization. And Meryl Streep says, the greatest gift of human beings is that we have the power of empathy. The power of empathy. Empathy doesn't have a script. There's no right way or wrong way to do it. It's simply listening and holding space, withholding judgment, emotionally connecting and communicating that incredibly important message which says, you are not alone. You are not alone, says Brene Brown. And so there was a study done in the United Kingdom and in Scotland, Wales, and London, and they studied teenagers and they asked them about their view of God. They used a junior ISIC actually questionnaire for these teenagers ages 13 to 15. How many religions would you say there are in the world? Well, it's hard to pinpoint that, but in all the research I did, they said there are 4,000 religions and they fall under the main categories of Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism. Yes, indeed, that's those religions. And so they asked these teenagers, do you like to attend your religion? No. What is their view? Well, their view of God is if it's a God of mercy, they scored very high on the empathy scale. And if it's a God of judgment, then they scored very, very low. They called it justice. If they said God is a God of justice, they scored low on the empathy scale. So moving right along now, I just want to remind you of these beautiful African terms. First one, Sayubono, I see you. Second one is Masikane. Let us build each other. So we're going to move right along to empathy in Judaism. What I found out in researching this, one of the most important Jewish values is, you guessed it, empathy. Isn't that awesome? It's called Rahamim. And it's one of the best ways to teach it is by modeling it rather than lecturing about it. Model it. Many people think that it is interchangeable with compassion, but it is not. Empathy ascribes other emotions in your own. Instead of somebody who's hurting, you say, I'm hurting for you. Compassion says that. But in empathy, it says, I see that you're hurting and I'm here for you. You feel their hurt. Sympathy involves understanding and acknowledging someone else's feelings. But empathy is literally feeling those feelings more than just, a lot of people just share that in their family, but feeling their feelings is empathy. And one of the ways to do this is called silence. To be silent, you can really feel empathy. Silence is more than just a lack of words. Silence is just more than holding back things that shouldn't be said. It's the silence of connection, that empathic silence. When you are listening, you are silent. There was a man named Yehuda Avner, and he was an Israeli diplomat. When he was 17, he fought in the Great War and everything. He lost so many people, and he never could share it. And so what he eventually did, he became this diplomat and moved to Detroit, and they gave him an audience with a rabbi there. They called him the Rebbe. And the minute he met this Rebbe, the Rebbe didn't say a word. He entered the office. The Rebbe just looked at him. The Rebbe just nodded a little bit. The Rebbe's eyes were so empathetic that this guy, Avner, shared all the things he'd been keeping silent. He just poured it out, and the rabbi didn't even say a word. This rabbi was exceptional, an exceptional, empathetic human being. Another woman, Marguerite Kazem Shajes, an opera singer in Germany, and she was at the Salzburg Festival, and she even sang for Hitler at that time, and then she escaped and got on the last ship to the United States. And she lost so many people in the Holocaust, but never talked about it. And they gave her an appointment with the rabbi. And this is what she said. I walked into the rabbi's room. I cannot explain why, but suddenly, for the first time since the Holocaust, I felt that I could cry. Like so many other survivors who had lost entire families, never cried before. We knew that if we would start crying, we might never stop, and that in order to survive, we could not express our emotions. But at that moment, it was so as though the dam obstructing my inner waterfall of tears was removed. And I began sobbing like a baby. I shared with the Rebbe my entire story, my entire childhood, becoming a star in Vienna, performing in front of Hitler, escaping to the US, and learning of the death of my closest kin. And the rabbi listened. But he not only listened with his ears, he listened with his eyes. He listened with his heart. He listened with his soul, and he took it all in. I shared all of my experience, and he absorbed it all that night. I felt I was given a second father. I felt that the rabbi adopted me as his daughter. What if we could shapeshift? What if we could shapeshift into someone else? What would that be like? I just wanted to tell you about the Shumanite woman. She was such a beautiful person, and she wasn't like Miriam in the Bible, or Rebecca, or Yael. She just was filled with empathy. She opened her door, and whoever came in, she greeted them with empathy. And she was a real heroine in our history. And I wanted to share that with you and let you know that listening just like Adler said, looking with your eyes into someone else's eyes, listening with your ears into someone else's ears, and loving in your heart with someone else's heart. That is true empathy, and it's expressed in Judaism. I am so honored to be able to share this with you today. And we move right along to beautiful Ha.
Thank you, Reverend. Beautiful is a big word, but I accept it from Reverend. Thank you very much. I'm going to share the screen with you. Let's see. Okay, can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
You could. Okay, great. Well, first start with empathy is interestingly today is actually the 33 years of the day that we landed in the United States from Vietnam. 30 years. This picture was taken at 8 o'clock in the morning in San Diego 33 years ago. I was 17. My parents, both of my parents was a lot younger than me today. But this was their like 14 time of restart their life. And also we restart our life again in 1991. It's just coincident today. It happened to be the anniversary day. My dad no longer with us. My mom's in her 70s, and I'm 50 this year. It's amazing. It's a journey. So I want to share, and this picture here I want to show you is the significant was that I was 17. I graduated from high school, did not speak a word of English when I came here. So what I'm speaking to you today, if you happen to, laugh at my accent or don't understand some words that I pronounce, you can empathize there where I came from. I started learning English when I was 17. So I'm still learning. So I just want to share with you that. In Buddhism, we don't have, Buddhism doesn't have empathy as itself, but it have compassion. But in order to get to compassion, you have to empathize first. So empathize in Buddhism is more like a feeling. So we do not have a Buddha that or the statue or a figure that represent empathy, but we do have one that represent compassion. So people use compassion and empathy interchangeably. It's nothing wrong with that. It's just compassion is the destination, but empathy or empathize is how you get there. So in order to be compassionate, you have to empathize first. So the compassion Buddha we have is Kuan Yin. I don't know, Reverend Ren will recognize it, but the left 3 Kuan Yins was given to us by Reverend Rainbow. Now, I don't know if she want to reminding us that we need to be more compassionate or whatever that is, but we loved it and we very, very loved it. And we very keep that in a great place. The 4th one from the left is actually from my great-great-grandfather. So I don't know how old that was, but that was Kuan Yin that we brought from Vietnam. And the other 2 I just got from the internet. So to give you an idea of how compassion live in Buddhist as a Buddhist, compassion is one of the 4 key that get you to happiness and peace. But you cannot just go out and be compassionate to anyone or anything that's happening. You have to empathize the situation first before you can get to compassion. So empathize pretty much is the feeling, the intention, the want to type of feeling in Buddhism. The compassion is actually an action. So So let me go back. So Kuan Yin is just reminding us that to be kind, to help others, to be compassionate and empathize, whatever you need to do. Then we have this Buddha that you typically see in museum, in temples, have 1,000 hands and 1,000 eyes. It just represents the action. So when you compassion, you want to help someone, you have to help that person from A to Z, which means you have to have a lot of hands, you have a lot of eyes, you have a lot of heads to get there. So you see these two figures also interchangeably in temple as well. Some call them empathize Buddha, some call them compassion Buddha, but more likely compassion. If any of these pictures make you think, any of these pictures that make you feel you want to do something, you can relate, you want to meet that person, you want to help that person, you want to do something similar for someone who in a similar picture and so on, that empathy in Buddhism. Because when you use something that touch you, make you feel, make you want to do something, you achieve that step, is the empathy step. And then you take action and you actually go out there and do things and actually put your head, your heart, and your mind into it and your hands into it. That can become compassion. Otherwise, it's empathy. The only thing in Buddhism teach us to be empathy is just to be kind. I think Rainbow mentioned that, and Delia Sen mentioned that earlier as well. To be kind is the number one thing to get you to empathize to something, to someone, before you achieve the last step, which is compassion. But funny thing, because to be kind is not about to be right. Even though you disagree with that person, but you feel that person, why that person think a certain way or act a certain way, forgive that person or helping that person, whatever that is, that's to be kind. And it's our life, we're just so used to just to be right, because someone not doing what you think is right, that person is wrong, and then you're not going to help, or you don't sympathize with that person. I learned as I'm going through life, it's funny to learn each person do a certain thing, even they do the exact same thing, but they have a very different why. It's funny because you ask, we call them the five. I mean, I learned that we call them the 5 why. If you ask the why 5 times, suddenly you got a root cause of the answer why they do act a certain way or do a certain thing. That's some corporate thing that I have to add in there. In Buddhism, teach us to, being kindness is come from within. A lot of people saying that I cannot be kind because she or he mean to me. That's not what it is. Start with you first. If you use your voice, as a kindness, and then use your ears for compassion, and then put that into action, then suddenly you feel love. That's all it is. That's all it is, starting with you. Everything is starting with you. So I think in Western culture, I heard or read somewhere that you cannot love someone until you love yourself. Same thing with empathy in Buddhism. You have to understand the situation, the person, before you can empathize that, and then you can take action. Because a lot of time we stall at empathy and being empathized. That's it. I'm sorry, and then that's it. We left it like that, right? But taking another step is compassion is harder. But hey, if empathy is halfway there, if we live our life 90% of time that we empathize to an individuals or a situation, we could be very peaceful. And when we are peaceful, it will get us to happiness. Before I close, I want to quote, one of my favorite person on earth is a former President Obama. For me, he's not a Buddhist, but what he said, or a lot of things that he said, and a lot of things that he did, reflect that. And these are my favorite two quotes that I found from him. One is directly related to empathy. The other one he just explained. you know, why we are the way we are, right? We live in a culture that's so obsessed with being pretty, being thin, being rich, you know, and then we completely have no sympathy for those who are not rich, who are not thin, who are not young. You ignore that. You know, I came from the culture that would respect elderly. You know, for us in Vietnamese, I can speak for the rest of the Asian culture, but in Vietnamese, we respect the elderly because from elderly, even you, the stupidest, oldest person, we still respect you because the years that you have in life, the things that you do in life, we respect that. Our cultures are different, right? We make fun of old people all the time. We make fun of old people, literally on the news. If you turn on the news right now, you see we make fun of old people. So that is the culture we live in. So be sympathize, make it harder for us to practice. You know, and then he said another thing that I caught that I really like, you know, learning to stand in somebody else's shoes, seeing through their eyes. And Reverend Rainbow mentioned that, you know, seeing through their eyes help peace begin. And it's up to you to make that happen. You know, again, you don't have to be Buddhist to be empathy, to be empathized to something. So yeah, I mean, and to conclude, easy said than done. Everything, you know, we said in life is easy said than done. For me, you know, empathize, the hardest for me is empathize lazy people, stupid people, entitled people. Those are the three that I have a hard time to empathize with. But sometimes I have to reminding me that as a Buddhist, you need to learn how to do that. So I run into a situation like that. I just pause and rethink. And then, you know, as I'm getting older, actually helping them to either overcome that or helping them with something, but not being mean and ignore them anymore. When I was younger, you know, I'm stubborn. When I run into a situation like that, I just walk away. As I'm getting older, I learn to be empathetic. Why they think the way they think or why they act the way they act. Not about to changing them, but changing myself to either tolerate that or let it go. So for that, I conclude the part of Buddhism. So thank you.
The next person is Hinduism with Raghu.
Yeah, can we stop the sharing? You know who's sharing? That way I can see better. Yeah, thank you. So thank you, everyone. That was a beautiful opening by Dalila and a beautiful song and a beautiful story from Dr. Reverend Rainbow and such beautiful illustrations from Ha. So what else can we add, right? So I want to empathize or feel that feeling that all of us are having at this point before we move into this. So I wanted to talk about empathy from the point of view of Hinduism or the Vedic tradition, if you will. There are many words in the Hindu tradition, this old ancient Sanskrit language. I'll relate some of the words and then go into what they mean and how Hinduism sees empathy and compassion and all these virtues. So the first word I wanted to say is sahanubhutam. So anubhuta is feeling, and saha is the other or the oneness in the other. So sahanubhuta is the feeling what the others are feeling. So ability to understand, ability to feel what the other is feeling. So that's one aspect, which is the closest to empathy, if you will, the way the definition is given by in the English language. And the next word is karuna. Karuna it's in different contexts, it means different things. It means compassion, it means grace, it means mercy. And the third word I would point out is daya. Daya again means compassion or kindness and sympathy. So there is a fine difference. But focusing on empathy is almost a root virtue, a foundational principle, if you will, in Hinduism, which guides not only how we behave with others, but it defines our moral character, our ethical behavior, and even our spiritual journey, if you will. That ability to feel the oneness to feel what others are feeling and operate from that space is fundamental to the Hindu way of life. And I'll touch on a couple of concepts which related to this. One is the concept of dharma. And dharma is translated loosely as righteousness, but also it's our own purpose or the very nature, what has been given to us to lead this life, and leading life by our dharma or swadharma, self-dharma. And one of the core principles for being able to live our life aligned with those principles, the divine principles that have been given to us, is again empathy. That ability to see oneness in everything in this creation. Not only the living beings, but the non-living beings as well. The planet, the earth, the different stars, the entire creation, the trees, the plants, the animals, the birds, the human beings, different races, different religions, different nationalities, all of that. Being able to see the one divinity in everything is root to dharma. And building on that is the concept of ahimsa or non-violence in Hinduism. Again, if you notice, ahimsa or non-violence is generally looked at as physical violence and physical non-violence. Whereas ahimsa is at the level of thought, word, and deed, action. So action we can relate to, but our thoughts and words also define whether we are non-violent or violent in our state of being. For example, our words can hurt somebody. Our words can alleviate suffering from somebody. So when we look at it from that perspective, we have to know whether our words are hurting somebody. We have to feel what they're feeling. Like when a child is going astray and we have to say an angry word, we're not trying to hurt, but we have to empathize with the child that there's a hurt going on, and how do I be compassionate and loving and enable that space while I'm using that word. So I'm not coming from the space of violence, but I'm coming from the space of non-violence, compassion in uttering that word, even if it's hurtful in the short term. So that aspect of ahimsa and it builds on empathy. So like this, I can go on with the various principles in Hinduism, and we'll find that empathy is kind of a root principle. One example I wanted to touch on is in the Bhagavad Gita, which many of you know is a scripture people very often refer to in Hinduism, where Lord Krishna gives this discourse to Arjuna. Arjuna is a warrior king, and he is in the middle of the battlefield, just about to start, and he's facing this huge army. He has this huge army. He's a very powerful warrior. He's prepared for this battle for many years. And in the battlefield, he has this question, this confusion, because of empathy. He feels all the people in the opposite side are my relatives, my teachers, my friends, my cousins, and how can I hurt them? How can I harm them? And he's confused. And he's asking Krishna, should I run away from the battlefield? What is the right thing for me to do, right? And it's very beautiful that in many chapters, but one thing I wanted to call out relevant to our context is Krishna tells Arjuna, see yourself, see the oneness in all of every person, and do your action, do your duty with compassion, with that feeling, with that empathy, with that kindness, with that love. So don't do it from anger and hatred. And there is a beautiful prayer that we do in which again resonates with this principle of empathy. You might have heard this in any gathering, any meditation that we do. At the end of it, we say "Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu." And I'll read out the translation. May all beings everywhere be happy and free, and may the thoughts, words, and actions of my own life contribute in some way to that happiness and to that freedom for all. So even our spiritual journey, like empathy is to conclude, empathy is like a root virtue, foundational virtue, defining our moral, ethical, and social behavior, but also defines our spiritual journey and purpose in life. So saying that, and I'll conclude with the prayer, Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. May all beings on this planet be happy and be free. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're now moving along with the First Woman's Church. Reverend Crystal. You're muted, Crystal. Can you please unmute? Crystal, you're muted. There you go.
Am I unmuted now?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Living light on. Alexa, living light on.
Okay.
Can you see the screen as well?
Yes, perfect.
I bring you greetings from the First Woman's Church in the City of the Angels, and a special greeting to my brothers tonight, because I have to ask you to wear your shoes of empathy, your feelings, your heart space, to hear the message we've prepared for you, your feminine energy, your yin space, so that you can understand that the whole of Woman's Church is the loving, kind, and compassionate space where women come to heal those things that we've experienced in the patriarchal system in place in this country. So when Reverend Rainbow asked me to speak tonight on the topic of empathy, I asked women from my sisterhood for their specific input, and several responded. One of my sisters was moved to respond twice. That second message came from my very dear friend and colleague, Reverend A. Hassani Perry, who has served as a senior minister of the First Woman's Church for many years after my retirement. And this is what she wrote. After sending my answer, I realized that I described a process I always want to see. Empathy does happen more or less depending on who's facilitating the Sunday service. Therefore, she said, in order to ensure the process as described, it may be good to make empathy awareness a part of our ministerial training. Now, some may say that empathy can't be taught, Reverend Hassani said, but however, she goes on, I believe the consciousness of empathy can be planted, nourished, modeled, and measured. And she concludes that email by saying, meanwhile, I stand in my original statement, the one I sent you about empathy at First Woman's Church. So, my dear friends, I decided that I would ask Reverend Hassani to speak to you about empathy and about her email about empathy and how she sees the whole and the parts of First Woman's Church as an empathetic, she didn't say hospital, but it could be thought of that way because we do have techniques and principles and rituals that we practice to continue and learn and gain experience with each other through empathy. So I present to you Reverend A. Hassani Perry.
Thank you, Reverend Crystal. And Salbono, everyone. Yeah, I see all of you. I may not see your faces. I know you're all here, and I'm so happy to be with you. And for brevity, first I'm going to read the first message I sent Reverend Crystal, because it's still my truth. And today I realized something else. I want to let people know that the purpose of First Woman's Church, the major purpose, part of our mission, is to help women gain a deeper insight into the soul of the divine woman within and change the formula of the mother's milk. And the mother's milk is what women feed the world. We feed our children, we feed the world. That's what women do, knowingly or unknowingly. And we are intentionally being conscious about that in Women's Church. So the things we do help women change thoughts, feelings, words, actions that affect the world. That's the mother's milk. So what I wrote, Reverend Crystal, my answer is simple. I see First Women's Church itself as a place of empathy. It's a space where women can feel safe as they share their truths, their deepest thoughts and feelings, whether positive or problematic, especially the candle lighting ritual. Women can experience being seen and heard without judgment. All the things we've heard so far that empathy is. First Women's Church is a space where empathy is modeled every Sunday. Hopefully, those who experience First Women's Church will, in turn, model empathy in their own lives. And of course, we know that as we all model empathy in our own lives, everybody everywhere, yeah, we create the world that we want to see, like the world we've heard through all the systems, faith systems we've heard so far. We'll all do it. Now, specifically in the candle lighting ritual, I believe, yes, we have the candles. We have 4 major candles and a 5th one that we added. But the first candle is the white candle, which represents the virginal state and the summer season. We start with the virginal state because that helps to undo those thought systems that women have gathered, knowingly or unknowingly, from their inception, from their mother's milk. And in the Western world, at least, the virginal state, it was said that when a woman has relations with a man, intimate relations, sexual relations, she loses her virginity. And what we say is that there's a space in a woman that's untouched by any person or anything, anytime. Therefore, we choose how we relate to our virginal state. We choose to see ourselves as whole, perfect, and complete beings. Next candle. So when a woman lights the white candle, she can speak to how she's feeling. Virginal state being new. Virgin is new and fresh. What's new and fresh in her life, in her thoughts, she's looking forward to, knowing that she's already whole, perfect, and complete. And then we go to the red candle. That's the candle for the menses. And in the stage of menses, the blood drops. And if that blood is not used to create another being, then the blood leaves just as the leaves on trees leave during the fall. So the red candle represents the fall season, and the season in our lives of releasing and letting go those thoughts, feelings, habits, beliefs, and people who no longer serve a useful purpose in our lives. Then we go to the black candle. We go in this order. The black candle represents menopause season, the season of winter, the season of going within and getting closer contact with that wisdom person. It's often called the wisdom stage, that stage where the second speaker spoke about the elders recognizing there's a wisdom space. And we go in just as the energy goes in wintertime, in spaces where we witness the four seasons. And we renew in our thinking. And we come out with even more wisdom because we have gone inside ourselves, that deep within ourselves, that dark space within ourselves where all new ideas spring forth. Just like if you ever look at the center of that flame in the candle where it's black, you'll see that's where the light is coming forth again. So we go in that dark and then we come out with more wisdom for the next green phase. And I say come out again because there's no, we go through this, then we go through that, then we go through that. It is a process. And as women, we may go through these phases in an orderly manner. We may go through them all at once some days and wonder what is going on. At Women's Church, we have a system so that we can, with discrimination, speak about what each phase means and gain more understanding for ourselves and for others. So we come out of the black into another greening, another season of fertility, a spring season, time in our lives when we can let our sexuality and sensuality flow, where we may think of birthing again. And if we don't want to, or if we're unable to, or it's just not in the cards to birth beings, we always have our ideas that we're giving birth to. So we're preparing to birth them in the candle of green, the fertility. And we added many years ago a pink candle, and that represents the children. In our pantheon of colors, pink represents a reason to be. And as our current senior minister says every Sunday, our children come here with a reason to be. So we started this ritual many years ago to honor and uplift our children who were not being attended to well in our public education system. I'll just say in LA, California, but I understand it was the United States. So we started with those children because we want to lift them up and ensure that they at least, we start when they're in kindergarten and we continue through seeing to it that they, in our minds and hearts and prayers and affirmations, that they minimally graduate from high school, that first step into entering adulthood, the way it's defined and used here. And then we light that pink candle for all the children of the world.
Yeah.
And finally, we light that candle for the child within ourselves.
Yeah.
So the circle continues. Those are our candles. And before I end, I was so happy to learn when my sister read what I had written to Reverend Crystal, that those are the exact thoughts she had about the candles. And she had expressed those thoughts to someone. So I said, well, we're on the same wavelength because we're in the same empathetic place where we want to be able to share, demonstrate, lift other women up in peace and in the deepest loving understanding and non-judgmental space that we can come from. So we end our candle lighting ritual with the Navajo prayer for changing woman. It's an affirmative statement. And the last part is, as we speak about the world and all things around us, below us, above us, everywhere, we say, it is finished in beauty. So today I'm speaking, it is finished in beauty for this beautiful program, all the participants. And I'm going to invite you, even though we're all muted, and that's good, so we won't sound like the Tower of Babel. I'm going to invite you all, each and all, to say, I am finished in beauty.
I am finished in beauty.
And so it is, and so we let it be. Amen and ashe.
Ashe.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Reverend Hassani. And we are moving right along this evening for our next beautiful presenter, Gunnar.
Hello, Monique, peace be upon you all. So good to see everyone again. Has been a while. So empathy is a relatively new term, which does not really appear directly in our text as the word empathy. So if you look into the Quran, which is a holy book, which we believe are the exact words of God in Arabic, or the Hadith collection, which are volumes of books of sayings and actions and stories from Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, you won't find the word empathy. You will find mercy and compassion. The most commonly used names for God is the most merciful and the most compassionate, similar to what Hal is saying. But that's that. The concept of empathy is there. We just don't name it. And one place in the Quran, God describes Prophet Muhammad in the following verse. Undoubtedly, a messenger has come to you from among yourselves. What you endure is distressing to him. He worries for you and is kind and merciful to believers. So here God describes the messenger of God, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, as whatever is enduring his community is distressing him. So he feels the pain or the stress of everyone around him, which is, to me, the definition of empathy. And that empathy is then converted into mercy for him. And the way Prophet Muhammad explains empathy, again, he doesn't use the word, but he explains it. In this hadith, again, this is a saying of the Prophet, you see the believers as regards their being merciful among themselves and showing love among themselves and being kind, resembling one body, so that if any part of the body is not well, then the whole body shares the sleeplessness and fever with it. So all of us are a single body. If you have, even if your toe is in pain, you feel it everywhere in your body, and everybody feels it and shares that same pain, which again is, to me, the definition of empathy. Here is another verse. Your Lord has decreed that you worship none but him, and do good to parents. If any one of them or both of them reach old age, do not say to them "uff" or any word of or expression of anger or contempt, and do not scold them, and address them with respectful words. In other words, apply the golden rule and do unto them as you would like to be done unto you. And I remember the first Celebrate Diversity, I think the topic was the golden rule back in, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, 2018 maybe.
Yes.
And there I remember sharing a few sayings from Prophet Muhammad on the golden rule, like none of you will have faith till he wishes for his brother what he likes for himself. Or another saying from Prophet Muhammad, the servant does not attain the reality of faith until he loves for people what he loves for himself of goodness. And by servant, he means the servant of God, so human beings. So the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, to me, it looks like if you take the golden rule and add empathy to it, you get the platinum rule. I hope everybody remembers that platinum rule is do unto others as they like done unto them. So the golden rule is do unto others what you like to be done unto you, but that ignores the other person, kind of. And works most time. I mean, 99% of the time, it's a good rule to follow. But every once in a while, you can find yourself in a place where what you like to be done unto you might not be what the person across you would prefer. I mean, this is especially common in interfaith settings. I can give you maybe an example. Maybe let's say your favorite food is pork chops, and you invite me to dinner to your home. And if you serve me pork chops as a Muslim, I'll be hungry. So maybe you like to be, I mean, if you follow the golden rule, you would do that, but with little empathy, if you know something about me and then putting yourself into my shoes and knowing that I cannot eat pork, following the platinum rule, you might give me something vegetarian or something else. Another story from the Prophet. And before I tell you that very short story, in Islam, one of the reasons given for the existence of humanity, the reason we are created, is to worship God. And the most prominent way of worshiping God is with the daily prayers that Muslims do 5 times a day at least. And this is Prophet Muhammad, during his time, there was one mosque and all the believers would fit into that one mosque and he would lead the prayers. And here's something he says, I stand in prayer, then I hear a child crying. So I make my prayer brief because I do not want to cause hardship for his mother. So he's performing maybe the most important duty, and he tends to prolong the prayers, but he hears a child crying, and he probably knows that there would be other children paying attention to that child, but it doesn't matter if the half of the world is taking care of the child. If the mother is in prayer and the baby is crying there, she would be in pain and she would want to go there and take care of that baby. So this is the empathy that he's showing and cutting short his most secret duty so that the mother doesn't endure the separation with her baby for the few minutes and doesn't have to listen to the baby crying. Because during the prayer, we are not supposed to do anything else. We are basically in front of God and we are performing secret duty. Rabbi Johnson always has to have at least one saying from Hafiz. I have to have something from Rumi, who is probably the most well-known Muslim ever. He says, empathy is even better than talking in one language. Empathy is even better than talking in one language. And again, when you do interfaith work, this cannot be more true. We speak the same language, but we sometimes forget it's not what you said, but it's what the person understands that is important. And without empathy, without putting your shoes into him or her shoes, it's sometimes we miss that. For example, here's something that that I share always with my Muslim fellow Muslims who are new to interfaith work. When we first started interacting with Christians, we like to emphasize Jesus with the title that we bestow upon him in Islam, and we revere Jesus as one of the. We use the title prophet, and for us, prophet is the absolute highest honor you can give a human being, because prophet to me means a human being chosen by God to represent him on earth, a perfect human being, and to stand for God. So for me, that's in my eye, I'm putting Jesus to the highest possible position. But then after years and years interacting with fellow Christians, it was clear that for them, that's not what they're hearing. They're hearing what they revere as God being brought down to prophet level, right? So what I say and what I mean is totally misunderstood or is totally perceived differently. So there is again my duty as a person in dialogue to kind of understand what the other person might feel and might understand from what I'm saying. So empathy is needed for through communication, really, and actually it's needed for everything. It doesn't have to be related to faith. Empathy. Anybody who's successful in anything is successful because they are good in empathizing. If you cannot empathize, you cannot communicate well. If you cannot empathize, you cannot be a good leader. If you cannot empathize, you cannot be a good salesman. If you cannot empathize, you cannot be a good teacher. So empathy is kind of very basic and very fundamental concept that we need to master. And let me wrap up with this quick story. As I brought up in this setting before, I'm part of a community called the Hizmet movement. Hizmet is a Turkish word for service, a service movement, which started in Turkey. But today, my group is persecuted in Turkey, and we still have tens of thousands of people from this group, from this movement in prisons in Turkey. We are Muslims, and the people who put us in prison are also Muslims. So it's not, and we are from the same, we are both Sunni Muslims, we are from the same, so it's not really a religious persecution in the sense that it's discrimination, it's something different that I have hard to understand, but I cannot go to Turkey right now. I haven't been in Turkey in 10 years. And 2 years ago, in May, my father passed away, and I couldn't go to his funeral. And losing a parent, maybe many of you have experienced that already, is not a good feeling, but not being able to even attending the funeral or being there for my mother or my sister in their hard time is something else. I still feel shaken by it. But that's not the story. The story is about a year after that, my dear friend here was in the same situation. He lost his father. He is from the same community. He cannot go. So many of us, as we do when somebody loses, we don't wait for scheduling. We don't wait for people to invite us. We just go. We take some food and go and be with that person. So for 2-3 days, they will never be alone. They will be surrounded by family and friends constantly. But there's, from my experience, I realized there's really not much you can say, you can do, other than I just sat next to him, and when he cried, I cried, and when he laughed while remembering something funny about his father, I smiled, I laughed with him, and just spent a couple hours with him doing that. Nothing else, really nothing said, nothing done. And he still comes to me, and every time he remembers that and says, what you've done for me is something special. And I've not done anything except just sitting next to it and reflect his emotions, because I would feel the same exact emotions just remembering my father passing a while ago. So for me, that was kind of exercising empathy and being in there and feeling what he's feeling, and to a different level. And I wish I could replicate that every time I communicate. I'm surrounded by other people and feel that same empathy, but that's hard to do. But hopefully every day we improve and we learn and get better at that. And let me leave with that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Gunnar. Thank you. And we are now moving along to Reverend Kit.
Good evening, and thank you so much for all of you for being here. And what an honor and a privilege to be here myself from the New Thought perspective and to...
Could you speak a little louder, Kit?
Yes, I can. How is that? Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is that a yes?
We hear you.
Okay, great. That New Thought is the distillation of all of the world's religions and all of the traditions and all of the basic traditions of empathy and the golden rule, and that there is one presence, there is one power, there is one energy, there is simply that one thing that gives us life. It breathes us, and we are all in this together. And that right there is the empathy the basic of remembering that we are indeed all in this together as human beings, as the human family. So the empathy part of it and being able to feel somebody's emotions, somebody else's emotions, and to know their thoughts or to think that we know their thoughts. We have that capacity, of course. And from the new thought perspective, however, is that we can choose to participate. We can just be there. We can listen. We can hold that space. In fact, that's what we do. Because we can choose to go into the emotional aspect of it and carry it on, take it on, carry it, walk in someone else's shoes. But we also remind ourselves that there is a greater spiritual truth behind all of it. And that is that each person's experience, of course, is wholly unique to themselves. So in our prayers of support and our holding space for them, we direct our consciousness to affirming that there is a wholeness and there is a perfection and happening in that moment, no matter what the situation is. And that wholeness and perfection is the immutable nature of God that is within each one of us. And so in our prayers of holding that space, we hold and we affirm, apart from the condition, apart from the circumstance or the appearance or whatever the situation is, that what is being experienced is, number one, a reflection of the consciousness, the individual's consciousness. But we also hold that there is everything is operating and unfolding in a divine way. There's a divine pattern to the unfoldment for our greater expression of that one within us. And so no matter what is happening, we hold that space, we hold that truth that everything is happening for our good, for our greater expression of God expressing through and as us. We know that love speaks to love, and we know that it speaks to love speaks to love through that one mind and through that infinite intelligence of which we are a part. And so what we do is we simply hold each other in the light of love. And I think if this is where I do the song, I'm going to go ahead and launch into the song as part of my presentation. And this is called Hold You in the Light. And it was written in that space. A number of years ago, I wrote this song about how we hold each other and we pray for each other without fixing, without changing, without trying to change anything about the situation. It's an acceptance of what is, but also that empathetic part of knowing that the human experience is that we hurt, we're in pain, we can share our joys, we can share our sorrows. And this is called Hold You in the Light. It's in your eyes, the questions of the ages. There are challenges and changes in everything you see. It's hard to trust, and sometimes the best of us can lose our way. That's why I'm here to say, I'm gonna hold you in the light, hold you in the light, hold you till you know again that everything's all right, and I'll remind you, as you are enough. I'm gonna hold you in the light of love. It's in your hands. There are angels in the answers. Choose your second chances. This is where you're meant to be. Don't second guess. Life will give you all the happiness that you deserve. Rest assured, I'm gonna hold you in the light, hold you in the light, again that everything's all right, and I'll remind you, as you are enough. I'm gonna hold you in the light of love. I'm gonna ask you to remember that you have everything you need. Every time you look into a mirror, 'cause no matter where life finds you, the light of love surrounds you. You'll always have the only words you'll ever need to hear. I'm gonna hold you in the light, hold you in the light, hold you till you know again that everything's all right, and I'll remind you, as you are enough. I'm gonna hold you in the light of love. I'm gonna hold you in the light of love. In the light of love.
Beautiful.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, Reverend Kidd. We will now have our glorious benediction by Reverend Deb.
So let us just take in that beautiful song that Reverend Kidd just sang for us, that really touched our hearts at such a deep level. I know it did for me. And in that space, I'm going to, before I do the prayer or include this in the prayer, there's a quote by Henry David Thoreau that goes like this: could a greater miracle take place than for us to look through each other's eyes for an instant? So I invite you, if you have your cameras on, to take a look in gallery view at each of the individuals that are here with you right now. Look into their eyes, feel into their heart spaces, touch their hearts with your hearts. As we give thanks for those individuals that have shared this evening, giving thanks for the empathy that they have brought from their different religions. What we know is that there is truly only one religion in all of this. And that is that place, that religion of love, that religion of compassion, that religion of empathy. And the thing that I'm reminded of is that empathy and compassion, that it begins with us. So as we look into each other's eyes, when you have a moment to look into the mirror and look into your own eyes and have that compassion and that empathy for yourself as well. How good it is to know that right here in this space that there is truly only the one life, and that life is God. And that life is perfect. That life is my life. That life is the life of each and every one of us that's here in the Zoom, those that may be watching on Facebook, those that may be connecting with us when they look at the recording. Go back and take a look and listen from this place of what each person shared. Because what you hear is the heart of God in every person that has shared on this day. Tap into that inner knowingness within you that knows exactly who you are, knowing that Spirit created you and created each and every person that you interact with from this place of absolute love. Knowing that each person that you interact with, that you see them and meet them from this place of empathy, this place of compassion, this place of love. That sometimes, regardless of how they may show up in that moment, that people are at times coming to us because they need love. So I'm grateful for this time that we have had here together, this opportunity to be able to add my voice to this gathering tonight, today. Grateful for this opportunity to say yes. Grateful for this opportunity to know God as each one of you that I see on this screen right here and right now, and those that I cannot see. That there is this place within me that reminds me of how we stand in love. Because as we stand in love, that love replaces the hate, that love replaces the judgment, that love replaces any negative feelings that we may be carrying, regardless of about any person or any situation. We stand in that place of absolute love. And knowing that we stand in that place of love for ourselves. Remembering that we truly are whole, perfect, and complete, exactly as Spirit has created us to be. So for all of those that have shared, all of the hearts that have been shared today, may you take this and move forward from this moment forward. Remember to stand in that place of love, that place of compassion, that place of empathy. Even as you're driving on the freeways, even as you're having communications with relatives or loved ones or coworkers or whomever it may be that may not always think of how we look at them. Go to that place of empathy. How good it is to know that we have choices. We can choose love. We can choose to be in that place of empathy. Or we can choose not to be. The choice is yours. And so I'm just grateful that this moment, this time that we have come here together, that we allow ourselves to continue to just bless each other, bless those that are here for this Empathy Month event, and for all of the activities that are taking place, that have taken place already, those that will continue to take place even after this event. We bless all of those and all of the presenters. We bless ourselves knowing that we have the power to send this empathy out into the world. This is the time, and allow yourselves to just hold that space and know you are God. And God shows up in this place of empathy. And so I just lovingly release this prayer, this love into the law, knowing that it is already done. It is already going out into the world, out into the ethers, beyond anything that we can ever see. And that it's doing the work that we have called to do in this gathering here. And so I know that it is done perfectly. And I allow it to be. And I just anchor this prayer with, and so it is. Blessed be.
Thank you very much, Reverend Deb. And please allow me to express my gratitude for all the powerful thoughts, the beautiful explanations of empathy. I know I became a better person just listening to all of you, and I greatly appreciate that. The examples were fantastic. And I feel that Reverend A. Hassani Perry actually created our call to action, which is model empathy and pass on that model of empathy so we can all do it. And by modeling that empathy and passing it on, we will create a better, a happier world. And I really appreciate that. And I feel that Rumi quote really summed it up, that empathy is even better than speaking one language. And thank you so much for that quote. I will treasure that forever. Reverend Rainbow, back to you.
Well, just ecstasy and gratitude and the oneness of all of us is so powerful. It's absolutely, as we boiled it all down to love, and we don't even need any more words. But I do open it up if anybody has any words. I'm flying. I'm on another plane of existence. This has been glorious. That's the word. Glorious. Deeper, deeper, deeper. I'm just thrilled. And anybody has anything to say before we say hasta la vista?
Thank you, Reverend Rainbow, for bringing us all together. It was wonderful. Thank you.
Yes, we appreciate that very much. Thank you, Reverend Rainbow.
Okay, can I ask, thank you, Rainbow, thank you, everyone.